Proud, religious, inclusive, dynamic, educational. Pride, the Student Pride Movement, an organization of community members seeking positive change for the LGBTQ2 plus students and staff within the Waterloo Catholic District School Board. Hello, and thank you for joining in conversation with Rashmi. Today, joining me in conversation, I have the Student Pride Movement co-founders, Emma Fritz, Eli Srouji, and Cheyenne Sexton. So thank you all for being a part of this conversation today and being here today.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking it.
What is Student Pride Movement all about?
Anyone want to take that on?
I'll give a brief synopsis here, and I'll let you guys chime in if I miss anything. So the Student Pride Movement was formulated by student body leaders who are alumni of the school board. Eli and I went to St. Mary's High School here in Kitchener, and Emma went to St. Benedict's in Cambridge. We are all student leaders. We are all past student council presidents who came together when we saw a submission to the Waterloo Record by Joan Grundy, one of our ex-vice principals who's still very active within the community and within the school board. I saw a post by Eli kind of resharing it on Facebook and really being passionate about, what she said in the article about them not raising the pride flag and kind of not raising any flag at all and the controversy behind that. And I reached out to him on there and said, I don't know what it is that we have to do, but we have to do something. Mm-hmm. So Eli and I talked that night, and by God's will, Emma came into our personal messages and said, "Hey, I saw you guys chatting about this, and I saw that you were very, all the emotions that kind of formulated out of what's happening right now in the media, and I think we should do something." And mm-hmm. the three of us together took it then from last Sunday, and we decided to formulate a group step by step, right from the grassroots up, on creating a movement that would involve the community, something we felt like was being missed out by the school board, that they weren't reaching out to not only LGBTQ plus people, but also members that are alumni, staff, parents, people of all walks of life that have connections to the school board, and give them a voice and start advocating on behalf of them.
Mm-hmm. And you've been through the school system, obviously, and that's the reason you feel very passionate to do what you're doing. So what was your experience being in the school system, and how did you deal with what was going on with each one of you? If you can start with Emma, you can start in, we'll take it with all three of you and see how your experience has brought you to do what you're doing today.
Yeah, for me, I didn't really start knowing who I was until, I'm going to say, about 2 or more years ago. I really, I think you have thoughts and you have feelings when you're in high school, because we are all born this way. And so for me, it was, I pushed a lot of that back. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because I felt like I didn't have a good space where I could safely explore who I am and have that self-reflection time. And so that was kind of my experience, is I wasn't really out in high school. I didn't really know who I was. I didn't have a label for myself. So in terms of, a lot of times people ask, like, did you feel included in high school? And my answer is yes, I felt included, because I think I didn't really know who I was, so I didn't have the ability to feel excluded for being LGBTQ because I didn't know that I was. But I feel like for me, something that could have been better in my experience in the school board is having representation and having a safe space so I could have that self-exploration. I could reflect and have people to talk to and kind of bounce ideas off of and really find a label for who I am.
And Cheyenne, what about you?
So for sure, so almost within a contrast, similar points, but a little bit different of a story. When it came to high school, I probably realized that I identified within the LGBTQ community when I was about in grade 10, fully. Obviously, like Eva said, you have things that come up, thoughts and feelings, but it wasn't until that time where I was definitely sure of myself of who I was. And that was really difficult for me because kind of like what you touched on with your interview with Joan, when you asked her about, did you kind of feel like you're living a double life? Everyone's experience is unique and different within itself, but mine, that part really touched me because I did feel like I was living a double life because I was recognized in school for so many things because I wanted to, just out of my own passion, my own character, be super involved in student activities, athletics, and academics. But as the years went on, and more of those opportunities came up and more of those opportunities were experienced, the further I felt from being able to fully realize and fully express who I was within the LGBTQ community, because I felt because there was not a lot of representation, there wasn't a lot of places to turn to, that I felt like, you know, I couldn't be both at the same time without obviously the part of being part of the LGBTQ community almost denouncing all of the hard work that I made for myself and all the connections that I made for myself within high school. So it started from in grade 10 when I found a really good group of students who, you know, some of them were LGBTQ, some of them were just allies, and we were just a good group of friends. And I would actually sneak away for the first few years when my parents didn't know, and they know now, but I'd sneak away and go to the pride parades and stuff in Toronto, and it was almost like my secret, you know, exploration time of the year where I could go and I could feel included, and I would see all these people on the streets just, you know, talking about really strong messages of all different kinds of walks of life, race, any form of marginalization, just a community coming together to be visible. So that was like almost my free ticket of the year, being able to go away to something where it was just all inclusivity all the time, even if it was just for the weekend. So I constantly battled with that right up until grade 12. And like I said, the train kept on rolling and more titles and positions and opportunities came down the line. And because I didn't feel like I fully had a space to not be able to take away credit for myself. I had to make the conscious decision for those 2 years, constantly going back and forth, like, you know, can I wait until after high school? You know, I feel like I'm hiding a piece of myself, being upset, feeling like I could, you know, use my platform at that time to help other kids who, you know, were all around our school. And I almost felt shame and guilt that I wasn't strong enough myself to be able to help those kids. So that's kind of where I'm coming from within this experience now. I told myself once I left high school, once I came out, and, you know, I came out and said, you know, as if you already didn't know, because I didn't want to confirm anything, but I always acted like my true self. I said that if an opportunity ever came back to help those kids, then I would, now that I'm comfortable, it's now not my turn to make them feel comfortable.
And Eli, what about you?
Yeah, so I actually had mine a bit different. In high school, I was really involved with the student council, and I was also one of the boys rugby team captain. And so in grade 11, before running for president stuff, I actually got outed by a guy in high school. So I actually was super scared at the time, not knowing how people, my worst fear is about, will I be accepted? Will I be included in everything? Are people going to think differently of me? In my intro video about not everyone has to fit a stereotype to know that they're part of LGBTQ. If you look at me, I don't anything different than how I was in high school. I've definitely grown up and learned a lot of lessons and stuff, but I'm still the same me, the same person. And actually, Joan, she was one of the first people to support me, accept me. I went in her office and talked many times because at the time I was like, I didn't know how to handle it and everything. And especially it blew up all over the school. In my Facebook post that Cheyenne mentioned at first, I spoke my thoughts out, and I basically told the board in my thing, 95% of your students and staff accept us for who we are. Now, why can't you? And it's crazy with the strength of numbers that this movement is beginning to show in such a small period of time. And that really does speak volumes. We have school teachers, staff members, custodians, students that are current and the past. And we've been getting amazing positive support from people that we haven't even talked to since high school. And they're like, we knew you guys could do this, and like we're so happy to do this. And the amount of personal stories we also get, it's unbelievable. So the fact that people do accept us for who we are, and staff, is just as crazy to know that the board that we once were so that we support can't support us. And it's like, it's really hurtful, especially with that whole pride flag thing. It's like Joan said, like if a group of Americans basically came to Canada and then all of a sudden decided, you know what, the maple flag on the Canadian flag doesn't look good, let's replace it with a beaver. And we want that, we want to use it. So like, how would they feel? Canadians would absolutely be pissed off, and so basically we are too. So my experience was very inclusive. I honestly did not, especially being part of a men's rugby team, the close contact with the same gender, etc. Like I basically told the team, like, listen, I am who I am. I'm not going to change. I will still treat you the same. I will treat my opposition the same. My number one goal is to tackle the first guy I see with the ball. And that's my main goal. And they were so inclusive and supportive. I was like very shocked myself. And then there goes the prez. We got the honor and privilege to do it, Cheyenne and I, for our last year. And then I ended up staying 5th year to continue my rugby, then came to McMaster University, and here I am currently, still fighting the cause.
All three of you have been so open about who you are, and once you came out, and you say you've had great support from, you know, your team members, your friends, and everybody else. But also, I heard in one of your comments that some of the students, they feared, they had a lot of struggle. If you could share some of those incidences where people can actually understand, because I know a lot of suicides take place, there's a lot of, you know, abuse, there's a lot of guilt that students go through because there's no support either from family, from the school system, that they can go talk to somebody. So what has your experience been with other students who are in the same position?
Do you guys want me to take this one real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
You can.
Awesome. So so throughout my time, I was also involved with the Prism Club at St. Mary's High School. And it's basically pride and respect for individuals with a sexual minority club. And we've had a good turnout. And then those youth kind of look up to basically me just because I'm kind of older. They all, you know, message, and we were very supportive. And at times, great amount of depression was going on, self-harm, even suicide attempts. And one of the stories that I also shared in my intro video on our Student Pride Movement social platforms, one of the students that we actually went to school with in high school the same year, she was involved in the Bible club, etc., super involved, and went on to University of Waterloo, trying to keep the anonymity, and basically ended up committing suicide and left an online note. And on the online note, it was a link in Google Drive, and it broke my heart because the first sentence was, and I remember it till this day, if you're reading this, that means I was successful this time. And I basically broke down in tears because it took me 2 days to really read the letter. And basically at the end of it, her own family wasn't accepting of it. And the fact that she had to basically out herself after her passing because she knew her own parents wouldn't support it in her own funeral, was very sad and crazy. So, you know what? Suicides do go on. And I do think that lack of inclusivity in the board does play a major part in that because, you know what? Emma, she studies sociology, so she can also come into this too. But I study social psychology in McMaster University. Cheyenne, she did social work, and it's like we all have the idea of education also behind us, backing us up. With students are at their prime time in discovering their true self. If you really don't, if they're already having trouble back home, and they attend your schools and walk your hallways every single day, knowing they're still not included, the pride flag is not even a symbol of support anymore. It's literally a lifeline. So suicides go around us all the time due to this lack of inclusivity. Emma, I don't know if you have any stories, but
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in and also mention, as Eli said, I recently graduated with a degree in sociology as well as family and child studies. So I've done a lot of research and studies around adolescence, and it is a proven fact that youth who are part of the LGBTQ community suffer astronomically from mental illness and from self-harm, and as Eli mentioned, even as far as suicide. And it's so unfortunate, and I think that's why it's so important to, when you see issues like we're seeing right now, to jump on it so quickly, because it's not a matter of a flag being flown. This is a matter of human lives being at risk. And so I think it's important that you do that research and you understand where these vulnerable youth are in your schools, and you do a good job at representing them, and you do a good job at accepting and including them, and also providing resources to them. I actually was just speaking to a student who's still in the board, and they identify as non-binary, and they said that they really felt like there was no staff that they could go talk to, because there was no one who, I guess you could say, specializes in LGBTQ issues. And so even taking a look at that, like, do staff have the proper education to even talk about these issues, or to talk to these vulnerable youth that are still in the board? So I think that's also important to recognize, and is definitely something that we want to bring forward to the board when we have a conversation.
So you haven't really had a chance to talk to the board yet?
Not yet, no. We have a plan in place to reach out to them officially. We have a full report that we're going to bring to the table with, academia backing us up, where that's where we will submit all the petition signatures with the names. We also have 2 surveys that we've put out. So one is for LGBTQ identifying individuals who are either currently in the school board, who are staff, or who are alumni. And then we also have one that's a general survey for the Waterloo region community, and it can honestly be submitted by anyone who is passionate about LGBTQ rights. And so we're hoping to submit those testimonials as well within this report. That will be sent next Friday, so we have about a week. Obviously, if the school board reaches out to us directly, we will have a response with them. We're not going to turn them away and say, oh, no, we're saving ourselves till next Friday. We want to have that dialogue. We want to have that conversation with them. And so if they do reach out, we absolutely will be open to having a conversation and showing them what we have so far. But we still plan to submit that report next Friday.
So tell me about this petition you started. What is it about, and what are you expecting? What's your goal ultimately out of that?
Cheyenne, do
you want to talk about it?
Yeah, sure. So basically the petition we started was, within the petition, it kind of gives a background of, when you click into it, it gives a background of what is the Student Pride movement, who are we, the people behind the petition. It gives a quick synopsis of why we've put forth this movement in the first place. And then it goes into some of our goals, which talks about, yes, of course, putting that flag up, putting the proper flag up, consulting with LGBTQ youth, in order to bring the representation piece, to be able to bring that feeling of relief and joy, and really making a statement that, where this flag is, even if it's for the month of June, which is recognized as Pride Month, that we, whoever has that up is basically saying there's zero tolerance here for any sort of marginalization, any form of, aggression, discrimination against these people, because we, as this powerful community, we stand against that. So of course that's one of our goals. Our other goals is basically to create, to take a closer look at the policies and examine them, pick them apart, and see where we can kind of help build the backbone of where the board stance is on being able to create and implement these changes, because we do want to see, we want to see that flag go up, and that's, what kind of brought us all here today. But when you really do dig deeper and you look into, board policies, you look into some of the initiatives that they do have or do not have, it's a lot bigger than that. So we really do want to start creating a conversation that can be, not just wipe your hands clean and say, okay, well, now we put the flag up, so we're inclusive. Or right now where we're standing on the other side of that is, you know, we're inclusive, but we're not going to put the flag up, or we're inclusive, but we're going to make our own flag and not consult with the people the flag's for. So we basically, our main objective is to make the board kind of overhaul what they mean on being inclusive, because being inclusive is a very hot topic these days within the last few years as society is progressing. So we really want to make sure that if they're going to have that at the forefront of their mission statement, the forefront of their school logo, if you know, the director wants to come and say, you know, I have the opportunity of going into schools and, you know, I can see that they're very inclusive. They are very inclusive because we are the students. Miss Grundy, you know, she's the teachers. There's a whole lot of people within those that hold up those school board walls that are very inclusive, and be able to give them the content of even being able to say that they're inclusive. Because when you see inclusive come across, you know, on a piece of paper, you think, okay, well, that's where I want to send my kid. You know, no matter what their background is, you know, I know my kid will be accepted if they're, you know, black, white, gay, straight, you know, any kind of, you know, any kind of thing that could be considered like a marginalizing tool. So our main goal is to really build up the backbone and work hand in hand with the school board and kind of providing them some resources and really opening up the conversation to the community, because we're disappointed that they haven't done so already. It's a public board, so it's publicly funded. And we really want to make sure that if they're going to stand, you know, if they're going to make statements and they're going to use the card of inclusivity, well, we are the inclusivity, and we want to be represented the same way that we represented you in order to give you that title.
Amen.
And how many, I think I saw about over 1,000 petitions. How many people have signed on that already?
So we actually just hit, I was actually just checking. So we just hit our second benchmark of 2,500 signatures. So our next 1,000.
That's amazing. That's wonderful.
Yay.
And where can people go up and look and sign these petitions, and the survey as well, if you can share that information?
Yeah, all of our information is on our website. It's under the Support Us tab, and there's a couple sentences for each of the links where you can be taken to. So it's super easy to go through. The first link is our petition, and then we also have the surveys. And within those links, we talk about, you know, fill out this survey if you're this, this, and this, or fill out this survey if you're this, this, and this. People can also check out our social media. We have a Facebook and an Instagram. And like you were talking about earlier when you introduced us, one of the main values that we have as a movement is education. And so on all of our social media platforms, we are putting out educational tools for people to engage with, such as mini slideshows talking about, you know, what is systemic homophobia and transphobia and what does it look like? Why is the history of the pride flag and why it's so important to the LGBTQ community? Because education is so important, and it's a way that you can get across to people your message in a productive way, rather than just yelling and being like, you're wrong, this, that, and that. It's at the core what's going to produce change, is people understanding our community better and seeing what we really represent and how they can even change what they do in their everyday lives to be more inclusive as well.
And that was going to be my next question, is there systemic discrimination and homophobia or transphobia that you've experienced that you can share?
I don't know if you guys want to talk about it. I think it's important to remember, and I think it's been, you know, the word systemic has been brought up so much in the past couple of weeks, especially with the Black Lives Matter movement. Mm-hmm. I think it's important to remember that the society that we live in North America and in other places in the world was built to represent a straight, cis, white male. That is essentially who the system has been built for. And so every single institution that you have in society has also been built for the cis, straight, white male. So I think if you deviate from any of those categories, you're gonna face systemic barriers, and you're gonna face, you know, things that are in place that you can't succeed as someone else would. So I personally don't have any personal experience, just because I haven't been out for as long as Cheyenne and Eli, but I don't know if you guys have any personal stories that you wanted to talk about.
For sure. I'll just touch on something quickly that I would just like to say, yeah, for sure. Have I been called, walking down the street, holding my girlfriend's hand, like called a derogatory name, which I won't give light to here, but we can all imagine. For sure, yes, 100% I have been. I've been in the tattoo shops before with people making comments, and it comes down to, people's stares. Has there been family members within the past that, have, at one point denounced my accomplishments because of, who I was at the time? But that was, again, yes, the answer is yes, but it comes down to just the lack of education, and what we want to do is really unveil that curtain and really just show that we're everyday people, and we contribute to society in many ways, shapes, and forms, and that it's not such an obscure thing, but that has to be done through education. And like I said, or like Emma mentioned, like the systemic portion of it it's especially again with this Black Lives Matter movement, it's silence is violence is one of the statements of Black Lives Matter movement, and it comes down to, it's not always just the outwardly derogatory comments or the stares or the uncomfortability people make you feel. It's also the lack thereof, showing your support. It's the lack thereof that it's just as crucial to people's development. When you don't speak up, then you may as well just be saying those things, because again, how is anyone else supposed to know where you stand unless you state it?
Also, I'm just going back to like my Facebook post personally. I mentioned the VIP award. So in my final year, the VIP award is basically handed out by the Waterloo Catholic District School Board themselves, and it's basically given, from my knowledge, to one student out of every high school. Doesn't matter gender or anything. It's literally the one. And I personally was honored to have received it. But then upon this controversy, I started asking myself, like, if it's one student out of the entire high school, if there's any knowledge of the gender I preferred and stuff like that, what if I gotten it? Like, I was honestly curious until this day if I wouldn't have gotten it. And I said it in my Facebook post. If not, I'm more than happy to send it right back to you, because I don't want my name on that without being totally included and supported with it. So,
we really want to stress the point that, it's just, there's people of all different walks of life, but just speaking from a relative stance of the three of us, like we were people that sat down with the bishop of our school board of the, the Diocese of Hamilton, right? And we are people that, we're your valedictorians. We were people that, did charity work for our regions, different region organizations that had nothing to do with our school, but our school was involved in, raising money for them. We're the people that, sent your kids off on a farewell at their graduation. There's, we're the people that you've given awards to and have had on your newspapers, and honoring what we're doing for the community. So it's like, if we're going to represent your community so strongly, and in high school and relative to all of us, wear our school uniform, wear our crest on the field, in the classrooms, on performances, on the live stage, bringing back to your school board such a strong representation, then it's part of the problem with this is that we can't wrap around our heads, and we're trying to, is that why can't you do something so simple for us? And we know that it's a complicated question. We know it comes down to, the Catholic religion and things like that. And it comes down to the bishop, and it comes down to, these overarching authorities. But the thing is, and it's like, you need, like, the school board needs to start having these kind of conversations with their superiors then, because it's happening already in the schools. Like, we're doing these things within the schools, and visually as well. So it has to come back down the other way. It has to be an open dialogue and an open conversation, because it's there. It's just trying to be hidden behind the word inclusive. But, what does inclusive really mean to you?
Three of you are doing such wonderful work for, the other students who are looking for an avenue where they can reach out and communicate and have someone stand up for them and, take that next step, because fear is another big thing I find that holds back a lot of people from coming out and communicating. So thank you for everything that you're doing. It was wonderful chatting with all three of you today, and wishing you the very best in this movement. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of people listening to this, and the support that you need, and hopefully the Catholic School Board listens to all of what you have to say. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.